Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we try to make sense of the financial world, one filing at a time. Today we are diving into AB Private Credit Investors Corporation's latest report, and let's just say it involves some behind the scenes money moves that are quite interesting. Before we get into the nitty gritty, if you enjoy these kinds of breakdowns, make sure you're subscribed. Also, we've got a fantastic community Discord channel linked in the description below, where we discuss these filings and more. So what's this filing all about? Essentially, AB Private Credit Investors Corporation, or the fund as they call it, is telling us about a recent move to get more money from its investors. Think of it like a company asking its partners for more cash to keep growing or fund new projects. The core of this report is about an unregistered sale of equity securities. Now, that sounds a bit jargony, doesn't it? Let's break it down. Unregistered means they didn't have to go through the whole lengthy and expensive process of registering these sales with government bodies like the Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC. This is usually because these sales are to a specific smaller group of sophisticated investors who are expected to know the risks involved. Equity securities are basically shares of ownership in the company, so they've sold more pieces of the company to their existing investors who are expected to know the risks involved. Equity securities are basically shares of ownership in the company, so they've sold more pieces of the company to their existing investors who are expected to know the risks involved. Equity securities are basically shares of ownership in the company, so they've sold more pieces of the company to their existing investors who are expected to know the risks involved. Equity securities are basically shares of ownership in the company, so they've sold more pieces of the company to. This event happened on July 25th when the fund sent out what they call a capital call notice. This is like a formal request to investors asking them to put in more money. And how much money are we talking about? A pretty significant amount. That's over $21 million. This money is coming in for shares of the fund's common stock, which is the basic type of ownership stake in the company. The sale is expected to wrap up around August 1st. How does this work? It's all based on agreements these investors already have with the fund. These agreements, called subscription agreements, basically commit investors to provide money when the fund needs it, up to a certain amount they initially agreed to. So when the fund sends out that capital call notice, the investors are obligated to send in their share of the cash. It's a way for the company to get funding as and when it needs it, rather than having to raise all the money at once. As I mentioned earlier, this is all happening without the need for public registration. The report here clarifies that this exemption is allowed under something called Section 4 AM2 of the Securities Act and Regulation D. In simpler terms, this means they are selling these shares directly to a select group of investors, not the general public, which allows them to skip the heavy registration process. This is pretty standard for private investment funds like this one. And here's a little detail about the company itself. A Private Credit Investors Corporation has checked the box, indicating they are an emerging growth company. This is a classification given to companies that have had less than a certain amount of revenue in recent years, and it allows them to take advantage of certain flexibilities in reporting requirements. It suggests they are still in a growth phase. The report itself is signed off on July 28th, just a few days after the capital call notice was sent out. This rapid turnaround shows the urgency or the routine nature of these types of funding rounds for the company. Now, what does this $21 million capital call actually mean for AB Private Credit Investors Corporation and its investors? Well, for the fund, it means they've secured a significant injection of capital, which they can now deploy into new investments, expand their portfolio, or perhaps cover existing operational costs. This is a positive sign that their investors have confidence in their strategy and ability to generate returns. For the investors providing this capital, it means they are deepening their commitment to the fund, likely believing that the fund's investments will yield good returns. They are essentially trusting the fund's management to use this money wisely. It's a cyclical process. They provide capital, the fund invests it, hopefully makes profits, and then distributes those profits back to the investors. Looking at this a bit like Warren Buffett might, we're not seeing a lot of detailed financial tables in this specific filing, which is common for a 8K current report that focuses on a single event. However, the fact that they are tapping their investors for over $21 million tells us a few things. First, the company is actively seeking growth opportunities. Second, their investors are willing and able to provide that funding, indicating a healthy relationship and a belief in the company's prospects. However, without more detailed financial statements, it's hard to gauge the company's overall financial health or the specific performance of its investments. This is more of a transaction report. The story here is one of growth and continuing operations, fueled by strategic capital raising from its existing investor base. So to wrap up our analysis of this particular report, AB Private Credit Investors Corporation is actively managing its capital structure by bringing in a substantial amount of money from its investors. This move, exempt from public registration, highlights their operational strategy of utilizing private funding to fuel their business. It's a clear signal of ongoing activity and investor confidence. Now, looking at AB Private Credit Investors Corporation more broadly, what does this mean for their direction? Well, raising capital is always a good sign for a company in growth mode. It means they have plans and the resources to execute them. The key for them will be how effectively they deploy this capital to generate profitable returns for their investors. The risks are always there in private credit, of course. If their investments sour or if the market turns unfavorable, investors could lose money and future capital calls might become more difficult. On the other hand, if they execute well, they could see significant growth and strong returns. In conclusion, this filing shows a company that is actively pursuing its investment strategy and is supported by its investors. It's a snapshot of a capital raise that contributes to the ongoing narrative of their business. What's your take on this capital raise? Do you think it signals a strong period of growth for AB Private Credit Investors Corporation? Or are there underlying risks we need to watch for? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe for more insights into the corporate world. And don't forget to join our Discord community for more in-depth discussions. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.